What's up, everyone? Welcome to the Early Wedge. My name is Nejad, and I am joined on a Wednesday by Rick Gehman. Rick, how you doing today?
I'm doing well. See, how about yourself, my friend?
Pretty good. I got to be honest. I got to be upfront with everybody. We were just talking to Josh, and he lamented the fact that we got this little tournament after a major. Let me get your thoughts on that.
Well, Josh was lamenting that we should take breaks, I guess, is what his argument was. And I don't know. I see this both ways. I think it's I definitely think there should probably be bye weeks in the schedule, but I also think that once the guys are in the routine of playing and traveling to the next week, you want them to stay in that routine as much as possible.
You know what's interesting about that, Rick? Sorry to interrupt you, but I was listening to Warren Sharp yesterday, who of course is the football guy, has his own sharpfootballanalysis.com, and he was talking about it was just I don't even know what podcast it was on. It wasn't on his podcast, but sorry for going into football, but this applies to what you're saying, Rick. He was talking about how the percentage of teams coming off bye weeks since I think like 2018, their win percentage and their cover percentage is actually a lot lower than it was the years prior. And one of his explanations for that was that especially some of these lesser teams, when they get out of their routine, they start to kind of fumble around because the way the CBA works, they have to take like 4 days off during a bye week. And that gets you completely off your practice routine, your game routine. There's definitely something to that.
Yeah. And, players dictate their schedule in stretches. So what you don't want to happen is they say, okay, well, I'm going to play the U.S. Open. So the U.S. Open's coming up. It's U.S. Open and the Travelers, right? And you'd argue, why would Travelers do that after a major? Well, it's like because they're already in it, right? They're already like in travel. They're going to go from Pittsburgh. They're going to go to the Travelers Championship, and it'll be all good, right? So I don't know. I get the point, but it's weird. These guys are routine oriented.
Fair enough. Well, I'm also routine oriented, so I'm going to say the thing I say every show. If you have a question or a comment or a pick or a play, whether it's DFS or betting related, go ahead and put it in the chat. We already have a lot of questions in the chat, but I do, Rick, want to go to a bit of a jump off point, and it's what we talked about on the front end of the Best Bets show yesterday with Jason Sobel, Patrick McDonald, myself, and Eric Cohen, which is the without Scotty market. Can I ask you? I'm not asking you necessarily to reveal your betting card or maybe a favorite outright you like, but is it in the with market or is it in the without market?
It's in the with market. I wouldn't beat you up for the without market. The without market is generally just a bad market to be in. But in a week like this where there is only kind of one guy, I wouldn't be too upset about it. But yeah, my stuff is all with the with market.
Yeah. Well, mine's in the very much without market. I can tell you, I think most of the people, other than Patrick McDonald, had it in the without market. I mean, listen, I get it, Rick, that the math isn't there, and I also think, Rick, that this course perhaps neutralizes some of Scotty's strengths. I mean, we're all kind of putting it in a similar, correct me if I'm wrong, we're all putting it in a similar spot on the fairway where we're focused more on accuracy than anything else. So there is a bit of a superpower just neutralizer here for somebody like Scotty who can do a little bit more off the tee. With that said, he's top 3 in the last 3 tournaments here, and he's coming in super hot.
The problem is he's significantly better than everyone else in the field. So right. Even if they said you can't use your driver this week, he'd probably still have a pretty good chance of winning. Even if they said you can only use one wedge instead, like whatever, right? Yes, this probably skews on the below average side of places for him on paper, but he's still the best player in the field by a significant margin, even if you bump him down 10%.
Yeah, fair enough. My card, we'll talk about it later on in the show, but it's got a few guys in that 30-1, 35-1 range that are all in the without market. Let's get to some questions, Rick. We got Zach Kasinski, who was in here early. Thank you for being in here, Zach. Thanks for hitting the like button. He says, what do we think of Siwoo Kim top 20? Sure, the antics are fun to watch, he says, but I'd rather put him in the top 20 with Scotty winning this thing. Your thoughts, Rick?
Well, I just think that anything that's not an outright, I think, is better for Siwoo, just because he's now, like 3 out of his last 4 starts, has played really well, gotten into the mix, and then faded on Sunday, which I think, and it just looks like a completely different golfer, right? He just kind of stops being fun and starts like sulking a little bit, quite honestly. And I think that needs to be built in. So yes, having a little bit of a cushion on a top 10 or a top 20 feels a lot better for someone like Siwoo.
Interesting question here. And by the way, I'm not on Siwoo, but I don't mind him in terms of like an outright, or I don't know that I'm playing him in DFS. I think he's a fine fit. So I think the top 20 call is just fine, depending on the number, of course, Zach. Mitchell Smith, this is an interesting one, Rick. Akshay. He says, what do you think about Akshay overall? And what do you think about a first round leader? I will say that he's in the AM Thursday. So that's helpful. It's not like, you don't have to rule out the PM guys, but it's certainly probably going to be helpful tomorrow that he's in the AM on Thursday. I have this list, Rick. It's like this chicken scratch list that I always start my research on. If somebody wants to like freeze that and take a screenshot, it's pretty hilarious and convoluted. But I ended up getting Akshay was initially on the list, and then I had some parameters, and I ended up crossing him off for reasons of his history here, accuracy off the tee, but everything else was like pretty good. Your thoughts on Akshay? He's not going to be for me.
You had me at accuracy off the tee. He's just spraying it. And this place is, it's tree lined. It's a big penalty if you miss the fairway, and he's playing some of the worst golf that we've seen him play in quite some time. So outside of just saying, hey, I like Akshay, he's really talented. And I agree with that. I like Akshay, he's really talented. This is probably a crappy place for him. I
have a theory on Akshay. Okay. You want to hear it? Sure. Are you ready?
I don't know. It depends on what it is.
What if you said no? Let's go to the next question. I think this is ridiculous, but I think it's at least a little bit true. People like saying the name Akshay. They like articulating the word Akshay, much like a lot of other players that have cool names. And if his name was Joe Phillips, he wouldn't get he's good. Akshay's great, but he wouldn't get quite as much action as if his name was Akshay Bhatia.
Yeah, it's probably a part of it. I don't know if it's a big part of it. That's probably a part of it. He's a fun dude. He's a cool dude. He's like, I like him, but yeah, the model, the stat profile does not look good.
Yeah. Speaking of model, that tournament where he took his shirt off,
he could be a model.
Yeah, I suppose. Yeah. I have more to say on that. I'm not going to. Sam Stevens home course from Robbie Price. I didn't know that, by the way. I like Sam Stevens. I don't know that I think he's a great course fit here, but the fact that it's his home course is interesting. Rick, do you ever put stock in the home course thing?
I don't, because, well, I do and I don't. It's very tempered because, for example, I will never forget this. For example, and I think it was actually here at Colonial, like 10 years ago or 8 years ago, Ryan Palmer laid out what I thought was a really great articulation of why it is not a slam dunk for guys at their home course. And he said, basically, I play this course 100 times a year, and then during tournament week, it's completely different. And the grandstands are up, the sight lines are different, the greens are at a different speed, the rough has been upped. Like, yes, I know the layout of the course, obviously, but that is not anything different than I'm going to learn Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday. I'm going to learn the layout of the course. Mm-hmm. So the jarring nature of this course that you know and potentially love looking a lot different than usual, that's a bad thing. And I thought that was such an interesting way to look at it, because it's only ever looked at as a positive, which I suppose it can be, but these guys are weird, and it's not a layup that it's a good thing.
We have some more Akshay comments here. Again, I'm not on Sam Stevens. And when I said the word model, Back Nine Bets is in here. Of course, that's Byron, who does some stuff over with Pat and does some of his own stuff too. Byron says, by the way, and we're going to circle back to some of the other questions, but I wanted to give Byron his proper shout out. I think this is an interesting DFS question. He says, by the way, what on earth is Bobby Mack doing at 6% owned? And Rick, I do want to ask you that just from a DFS standpoint. We're looking at the 9K range, and predictably, it's pretty flat with the bigger names. Like nobody, like as far as I can see, and I'm actually looking at your site, we do have some Berger and Spieth high ownership, but after that, it's pretty flat. But Bobby Mack, Keith Mitchell, not enjoying much ownership at all. Your thoughts there?
The way that I see it is that Scotty Scheffler is going to be in a lot of lineups, and the 6K range, the 9K range in general gets skipped a lot. Is the way that I see it. And then within that I don't know, the 6% thing is throwing me off. I keep saying 6K. Then because the 9K range is being skipped so frequently, the lineups that are coming in are burger based, Spieth based lineups. So there's scraps kind of left for everybody else. And because Robert McIntyre has been playing okay golf since the Masters, nothing horrible, nothing great, there is not this enthusiasm around getting him in there when builds are already avoiding that spot in general.
Agree. Well, so how do you feel about this? I'm playing a few more lineups this week than I normally do, and they're like lower dollar. So I'm not investing as much in the single entry high dollar ones because I kind of want to I want to experiment with the non-Scotty lineups because Scotty will be so popular, and it is really hard to build Scotty lineups without really dipping into the 6K range in a pretty significant way. With that said, how do you feel about lineups that avoid Scotty? And are you making any of those lineups and literally feature 2 or 3 9K guys right off the bat?
I probably, like, if I was building lineups in order by hand, I would probably not start getting to non-Scotty lineups until like once I get past 10 lineups or something like that. Just because, we've talked about this a lot. The DFS pricing is never high enough for the favorite and the significant favorite. And I just think he's probably going to bulldoze these guys. And I'm okay. I'm generally comfortable with the bottom of the 7, top of the 6K range that I can make some pretty comfy lineups. So it does not get me to non-Scotty lineups until I'm outside like 10 lineups.
Totally fair. Again, I do think this is a unique opportunity as much as people are building with Scotty and just having to live in that low 7K, 6K range. I think it's a unique opportunity to maybe change up how you are selecting some of your tournaments this week and just experiment with some stuff where, again, if you fade Scotty, you might be dead after day 2. Maybe not, depending on who you have in your lineup. But with all that said, I feel like experimenting with the non-Scotty lineups this week is the way to go for at least some extra lineups. All right, we have so many more questions we need to get to. Sites 501, Mitchell Smith, Walker Underwood, Jen is in here, D Johnson. We're going to get to all of those right after this message from our partners.
When you need your sports news all the time,
we've got breaking news to bring to you.
CBS Sports HQ gives you a snapshot of all the sports that matter to you. When you need your sports in a snap, find it on CBS Sports HQ, streaming free anywhere you are.
All right. Sites 501 asks, obligatory Keith Mitchell first round leader. I mean, he's not on my first round leader card for some reason, but I guess I'm the idiot because, like, why not? He is in the PM, but like, who cares? It's Keith Mitchell.
I think that ship has sailed. Okay. I don't know. I mean, listen, yes, what he did was incredible. To think that it's going to continue is would be jarring.
Yes.
And I think there's somebody else. I don't know who it's going to be, but I think somebody else is going to be the first round leader.
I made the comment on the Best Bets show yesterday that if it's Keith Mitchell, I'm just taking a 2-week hiatus, only 2 weeks from the first round leader market, because it's just like the height of ridiculousness. And I just need that wave to just crash and move along. So maybe that probably started last week, maybe this week as well. All right. Mitchell Smith, way off topic. Any Indy 500 picks? Head to SportsLine, Mitchell. I was on CBS Sports Network hosting from 12 to 1. At the end of that show, maybe we'll cut that up and put it on the SportsLine YouTube channel, which hopefully you're subscribed to. Maybe we'll cut up my my conversation with Phil Bobbitt, because he actually did have some Indy 500 picks, and I'm sure those are in the SportsLine Discord and on sportsline.com as well. Walker Underwood, any value on betting Berger plus 440 in his 3-ball versus Scotty and Davis Riley? This would be a round 1 3-ball. Think it could be worth a sprinkle round 1, round 2. I mean, actually don't hate it at plus 440. Rick, your thoughts?
Round 1 would be the best. Only one round, and round 1 would be the best place to do it, because if you think there is any...
Oh, it's 240. Excuse me. Go ahead.
Okay. If you think there's any fatigue or any slowness out of the gate from Scotty coming off a PGA Championship victory, then it's now. I'm not touching this, but if Walker wanted to get in on this, the first round and only 18 holes would be the best time to do it.
I have a crazy 3-ball that I might give out on the early edge. I was hoping I could isolate it to like a 3-ball matchup, which DK kind of gives you, but they're not giving this one. I'm going to find it and I'm going to give it out as just an unofficial play. later on in the show. I got to find it first, but it's a name that most people aren't taking a look at. All right, I think that's a good answer. I agree. I think Berger plus 240 is decent. I'm not going to do that, but I don't hate the play. Berger at plus 240 in that 3-ball. Brandon says, thoughts on a 3-ball Ben Griffin, who's a popular name, over Matt Kuchar and Nick Hardy at plus 105. So really, Rick, this is Ben Griffin versus Matt Kuchar.
Okay. Well, yes, right? Sure. I mean, yes, I like this. I like Ben Griffin a lot. I think that he is trending towards a solo victory. I think that he is one of the better golfers, non-superstar golfers of 2025. These are the types of fields that he gets into. His game is really, really sharp. He is playing with a ton of confidence. I love the way Ben Griffin is trending. This is a much more exciting 3-ball than trying to go up against Scotty Scheffler.
Yeah. I guess the watch out is that Kuchar has some decent history here, and it does feel like he's a pretty good course fit, but certainly Ben Griffin coming in with more pop in terms of his recent play, right, Rick?
Oh, yeah. I mean, yes, for sure. I think that, yeah, the Kuchar history is fine, but Ben Griffin is significantly better than both of those guys. That's the fact.
Speaking of 3-balls, the 3-ball I was thinking of, and I'm still going to check later to see if I can isolate Sam Ryder in particular, but it's Rico Hoey. This goes off tomorrow at 2:18. Rico Hoey, Sam Ryder, David Lipsky. I think I want to take David Lipsky just to sprinkle at plus 250 there, who, oh, by the way, has great history here and would have been a first-round leader selection for me if he was going off in the AM, but he's going off in the PM, and that would have been like 150, 200 to 1, I'm sure. But Sam Ryder not playing well. Rico Hoey, he's fine, but I think David Lipsky could take him out here. Let's move on to Wedgie Jackson. He says, 2 DFS ownership questions, Fleetwood and Rye. Rick, do you have that in front of you?
I can get it in front of me. So looks like Fleetwood again is kind of the sacrificial lamb of like Scotty Scheffler in the 9K range. So I've got him at like 16% projected ownership. Aaron Rye probably 19-ish. The 9K range. There's a little bit of, Harris English and Aaron Rye coming in at something similar there at the bottom of the 9K range. And then Tommy is just kind of on an island where it seems like everyone is opting to go with Scotty and then Spieth / Berger.
He's a flat 10K, Tommy. And honestly, I'm seeing 16%. I'm sure that's right. It wouldn't shock me if by the end of the night, people just switch off of him. And they just, because of all the content, people are just either going to go in the 9K range or they're going to be like, I got to take Scotty. I'm paying 3,700 more. Bill Florian says, any thoughts on Mark Hubbard at 7K as a down the line guy in DFS? I believe he's made his last 5 cuts, or are there some 6K guys who have a better profile? Rick, your thoughts on Hubbard?
I'm pretty neutral on Hubbard. The 6K guys that I think are probably a little bit more interesting are Ricky Castillo. I think is interesting. I think that Chandler Phillips is interesting. I would not even be afraid to play somebody like Blades Brown, who finished runner-up at a Korn Ferry Tour event a couple starts ago, or Brian Campbell. Probably this might be the last Brian Campbell opportunity to not have his woeful driving distance be a huge detriment. We are probably running out of courses for Brian Campbell, so this would be probably one of the better ones.
I am playing Brian Campbell in DFS most likely, unless a weather wave really gets created here, which it could be with the PM AM. Rick, I don't know if you've looked at that, but I mean, in terms of winds and wind gusts, it does feel like maybe PM AM might be the better of it, but I think it's probably going to be marginal. Too early to tell at 4:00, but I just wanted to throw that out there. But I do have Brian Campbell as I have like a lot of long shot first round leaders, and Brian Campbell is one of them. So I certainly like him in a couple of different markets. Scott Weising, Harris English. I agree. We hit a Harris English last week at 110 to 1 in the without Scotty market. Of course, we had a 3-way split that, but that was a very nice hit. Jen M says, is it worth playing cash games in DFS or better to just place some top finisher bets instead? Oh, interesting.
Probably the latter. I mean, you think about it, right? DFS is really, really hard. DFS, you're basically trying to like parlay 6 top, in cash games, like 6 top 20s, right? To like, or like 6 top 30s or something like that. So I think you would just be better off doing top X finisher bets instead. Yes.
It's a really good question. I think I agree. I think if it were like NFL DFS, I might be like, okay, definitely bankroll management. You can do cash games there. There's a little bit more predictability, more volume you can predict. In golf, it's just random enough for the Rick. Do you agree? Just random enough for the cash games not to be viable.
Yeah, and football's. I'm trying to think. I mean, I'm obviously not like a football DFS guy, but you can have, like you said, there's enough volume where guys can there's a much better correlation between opportunity and scoring, and there is a big enough difference between opportunity of guys, right? Like there's going to be a wide receiver that gets 15 targets, and you're going to be able to predict that pretty easily. It's going to be your Justin Jeffersons, your Jamar Chases, all that stuff, and there's going to be guys that get like 1 or 2 targets. In golf, everybody's playing 36. And then everybody makes a cut is playing 72. So like the opportunity in theory is there for everyone. So it's a lot harder to distinguish between player 30 and player 40, player 50 and player 70, like all that stuff. So yes, I think where you're going, I think you're right in the sense that it is easier and you can correlate, like you can correlate teams. You can take a quarterback and a wide receiver. You can take the games that are higher scoring potentials, right? Like there's all this other stuff, and golf is just nothing really correlates with one another outside of potentially weather or whatever else you might want to think about.
That's right. And certainly golf is more of an ownership game than NFL. I mean, NFL DFS is also an ownership game to some degree, but I think more so in PGA. And that's why looking at ownership and referencing ownership is super, super important in this environment. I didn't know this as well. Zach Kasanke says, happy birthday, Mr. Blades Brown. Will you guys ever play him? I just checked. It is his birthday. And you know how old Blades? I mean, I know he's young. Do you know how old he's turning?
He either just turned 17 or 18.
Yeah, he turned 18.
Yeah, he's a baby until today, I guess. Yeah, he's awesome, dude. He, like I said, he finished second in a good Corn Ferry Tour event 3 starts ago. He made the cut at Myrtle Beach. He's very, very good.
So you mentioned him as a 6K play that you're willing to play, correct?
Yeah. I mean, he's like 4th or 5th, but the 6K range is pretty weak. But yes, I would play him.
How much is he? Because I want to see.
I think he's 6,500.
Okay, I want to see what wave he is in too. Yeah, he is in the AM PM. Again, that may or may not matter, but I just wanted to point that out. I didn't even mention the 6K guys that I like. I do want to mention a couple names. That's, by the way, I'm the king of the narrative. So now I have to put Blades Brown in at least a few lineups. So Zach, thank you very much.
If his name was Jim Smith, nobody would care about him. Blades Brown is a sick name.
We wouldn't know. Yeah, we wouldn't know it's his birthday if his name was Jim Smith.
Yeah,
that's for sure. I might have to even I got to put a sprinkle on him first round leader too if it's his birthday. I mean, we have to do that. Okay, some 6K guys that I like because I don't want to forget to say this. Simi Valimaki, I think is interesting for this is all for DFS purposes. Henrik Norlander, do you have a take on him? Because he seems great, like from a course fit standpoint, but his history here is garbage. He's always been a good course fit. So I tend to now kind of want to not play him.
I think my take on Henrik Norlander is always the same. It's like wake me up when he can putt type of deal. Yeah. He's just he's such a great ball striker. But the lack of really good results is not lost on me. I just, he's okay. He's nothing special.
He's also one of my super long shot first round leaders. I have Lucas Glover at 65 to 1, and then I have a bunch of guys in the 80 to 150 to 1 range. Here it is. I've got 5, but they're all sprinkle long shots. Lucas Glover, Matt McCarty, who I really like, it just in general, but also as a first round leader at 80 to 1, Henrik Norlander 100, Brian Campbell 120, and Ben Coles. I mean, that is really a reach, but I'm doing it 150 to 1. And you see Jason Sobels and Patrick McDonald's first round leaders there too. Scheffler at 12 to 1, Sami Valimaki 125, and Patrick goes with Daniel Berger at 40. A couple other 6K guys I like before we get to more questions. I mentioned David Lipsky at 6,300, Ben Coles 6,200. I think Carson Young is at least interesting. All right, let's get to some more questions. Thanks for putting them in here, folks. Brandon says, do we have any looks to make the cut, or give me a couple names that are good course fits or you feel really good about? I don't do the make the cut parlays. I don't bet that market. It's very rare that I do. Rick, any response to this?
The immediate thing that pops into my head, because I bet him in the top 40 market. I know it's not a make the cut, but like I think Joe Highsmith was incredibly mispriced kind of for this week. Is the game is a lot better since the slump, since the win. It's been it's been a lot of a year for Joe Highsmith, but I like where he's at now compared to where he was a month ago. And he was, I believe, plus 120, 125, maybe 140 in the top 40 market. So he's probably closer to even money or a small favorite to make the cut. That would be a place to start for me.
Yeah, fair enough. I put out some top 40 and top 30 plays. Again, I know that's not what you're asking, but if you're talking make the cut, like some of my outrights, easy for me to say, like Harris English, JT Poston, Aaron Rye's not one of my outrights, but I think guys like that, if you're trying to put like a parlay together, you can get some of those guys and get a pretty good plus number if you put like 2 or 3 of those guys in there, is my guess. Let's go to the Scramblers in here. Thanks for being in here. I think I know who that is. I think I follow this account. I feel like people have Keith Mitchell, Andrew Novak burnout. Nice week for them both coming up. Before you respond, Rick, I do want to mention one of my matchups is Brian Harman minus 125 over Andrew Novak. Mostly predicated on Harman's history here and his course fit and the fact that he's just been putting the lights out. I'm mostly a fade on both of these guys. How about you?
Well, we talked about Keith Mitchell. Keith Mitchell's like, I have Keith Mitchell burnout because he's never given me a reason to burn in, right? I just don't have a reason. I'm in on Novak, dude. Like he's been awesome. I don't care about miscuts at major championships for guys like Andrew Novak. He was great on Thursday. The Green Mile ate him up on Friday, which happened to John Rahm, will happen to Bryson, happened to like everybody not named Scotty Scheffler. Do not care about that whatsoever. He's been one of the I know it's strange because they won together at the Zurich, but like the Ben Griffin, Andrew Novak stuff, I think is real. I think it's legit, and I think there's more of those guys coming.
Next, I agree that the Novak stuff is real. I'm not gonna take him here. If I remember correctly, I'll have to go back and look. He's played here a couple of times and hasn't fared well.
No, I don't think it's good. But he's a much better player now. But it's miscut last year, T40 the year before that.
Okay, T40 is not terrible. You're right, though. It's a much different player now than he was then. Back 9 bets, of course, that's Byron. He says, if you don't go with Scotty, is there a particular size contest that you would prefer, GPP or versus single entry?
If you don't play Scotty?
If you don't play Scotty.
Probably single entries, right? Because you usually get a more polarized, like whatever Scotty's ownership is in GPPs, it's going to be higher in single entries. You usually get that to be more polarized. So if you are not playing Scotty, you would probably be better off doing that in a single entry because you would have a larger discrepancy between you and the rest of the field.
Totally agree. I think obviously you can do it in GPPs as well. If you do, you probably just want to be over the field. If you think Scott is going to be 40 or 50%, you got to at least match that or be over in terms of those lineups that you're fading Scotty. But yeah, I think these days, like 3 years ago, people would have said, oh, it's GPPs only. But the edge that you're having on single entry, if you're right, because again, especially the higher dollar you go, the more Scotty lineups you're going to see, the more chalk you're going to see. So if you get those single entries right in terms of fading the chalk, like you're in really good position. All right, let's move on to JK Johnson says, any love for Takumi Kanaya down there in the low 6K range? Kanaya's flashed a little bit here and there. I mean, he's had some pretty good finishing positions for a guy that nobody's really like playing or heard of, but any thoughts here? Seems like a decent course fit.
I mean, he's incredibly talented. I love it. Like great amateur record. He got that little bit of a mini bump post Zurich, which is normal. And then I think he got smoked at the PGA Championship. I'm pretty sure he missed the cut, which again, I don't really care about. So there's a little bit of there is a faith-based argument for Takumi Kanaya. He does not need to do much, and he's in that low 6K range that gets you access into Scotty Scheffler. So I am definitely above average relative to his price and all that stuff and expectations. I'm definitely above average on Takumi.
Yeah, it looks like, he's a very solid putter. Approach play could be better, accurate off the tee, shorter hitter. So certainly seems like this would be a fit where he could potentially succeed. And he's only 6,500. I think it's a pretty good look. let's see. Is there anybody that's a steal in DFS this week? How about, Rick, somebody that you think is just underpriced and you were just surprised at their price? Or maybe their market price in the betting market.
I mean, Joe Highsmith, definitely. That was the first one that popped into my head. I think Ricky Castillo at 6,900 is probably a little bit too cheap. Is he worse than Pearson Coody? Is he worse than Matt McCarty? Is he worse than Lee Hodges, who's missed like 6 out of his last 8 cuts or 6 out of his last 7 cuts? And then I think that the biggest discrepancy between perception and reality, I think, is Alex Smalley. And I don't love Alex Smalley, right? I don't think he's like the greatest thing since sliced bread, but all 3 of his last 3 missed cuts have been on the number where he's actually gained strokes to the field. So he's missed cuts in 3 out of 7. And all 3 of those, he beat the field average, which is, if you're only looking at his finishing position, it's a missed cut. But there are good missed cuts and there are bad missed cuts. And I think his last 3 missed cuts have been better missed cuts. So I just think that there's not really a reality around the perception that he's playing super poorly right now.
All right. I'll give out some names that I don't think they're underpriced, but guys that I'm very likely playing in my DFS lineups or that I have some sort of bet on. I think Thorbjorn Olesen is very interesting at 7,700. I have him as an outright in the without market at 66-1, which you can get over at BetMGM. Christian Bezuidenhout looks like he's getting some ownership in that 7K range. 7,500 starting to play a little bit better. Good history here. I have him in the top African market at -105. And then maybe one other name that I think McCarty's getting some ownership, unfortunately, but I like him at 7,200. What do you think about Ryo Hisatsune? Because a lot of people are like, he's mispriced at 7,100.
I'm in. I mean, his last 3 months or so have been quite solid across the board. I love the way he putts it. He's found the thing about him and his price is that he is like a legitimate top 5 threat. There are a lot of guys who are at the bottom of the 7K range that have not sniffed top 5s or top 10s in quite some time. And Rio's got, I don't know how many he's off the top of my head, but like a handful of them in the last couple of months, which is to me a much more exciting way to deploy my cash.
I love that. In fact, I wasn't totally in love with what I saw from Hisatsune in terms of coming into this week, but I can't deny that like there's some instances recently where he's really shown up. He is actually one of my long shot outrights in that without market again, just so everybody knows. So I definitely think there's plenty of upside, maybe some downside too. Certainly when you're playing DFS, you got to monitor the ownership because it looks like, Rick, he's creeping up toward 10%. And in that low 7K range, understand like what people are doing with their lineup construction in DFS because they're grabbing Scotty. And then for the most part, at least 4 of their next 5 guys have to be in that low 7K, upper 6K range. So guys like Rio trending towards 10%, probably going to be at 10% once we get to lock. And we do have to recognize some of those names that are just going to be super, super popular there. That's probably why Matt McCarty's getting a little bit ownership. That upper 6K range, you might see Norlander start to pick up some. I mean, some of the names we went over in the 6K range, but interesting from a lineup construction standpoint. He'll probably get targeted quite a bit. Let's go back to Joseph Boza. Do we think it's worth to bet down the field? Solba told us last night that this tournament has given us Vegas odds-wise with upset winners. Rick, are you betting down the board?
I think the farthest I went was well, I can tell you. It was Taylor Moore, I think, was 100-1, I think is what it was. And maybe I'm confusing him with somebody else here. Let's see. 60, 70. No, Taylor Moore 100-1. I did not bet Scotty this week. I bet the with market, and the farthest I went down was Taylor Moore. So that's kind of where I think it's okay to bet. Even if you think the odds are correct on Scotty Scheffler, he's going to win this golf tournament like 35% of the time or 40% of the time. 60% of the time, he is not. So who's going to win if he does not? And then I think it's wide open. So we're just fading the Scotty buzzsaw.
Yeah, I can tell you that I did the without market, and I think I had 3 primary outrights and then 2 like super long shots. I think it was JT Poston, Harris English, which both were in that 30-1 range. Thank you, Josh. Just putting this up. 30, 33-1. Again, this is all without. And then I told you Thorbjorn Olesen at 66-1. So Joseph, I did it in the without market, but to Jason Sobel's point, Rick is not opting for that. And there certainly is a better chance that Scotty doesn't win than he does win when you're actually looking at the true odds here. All right, we go to Joey B. Says, Sia in pastel, Rick in black. Love the consistency here at SportsLine. Rick's hair almost as high as Sia's. Whoa.
I don't know about that.
Your hair looks great today, my friend.
Thanks. There's a lot of product in it. I can get it up there pretty high for you. There you go.
We should have a hair off on the next one. Are you back you're back home, right? Finally?
Yes. I am feeling it right now. It has been it's been quite the trip, a little jet lagged at the moment, but yes, I'm back.
Are you back on the road for the Memorial in a few days? What's going on?
The next time I will be, yes, I'm going to Ponte Vedra. I'm going to PGA Tour Live for the Memorial. So it'll be Wednesday to probably Monday. I'll be back down to Ponte Vedra.
All right. Joseph Boza asking Scotty, how much is he going to be? Is this right that Scotty's going to be over 50%? Like that's not actually going to happen.
I don't think so. I was just kind of looking at the numbers again here. I think I like 40.
Yeah.
I think I like 41, somewhere in there. It's leveling itself out. I don't think he's going to be 50. That would be in a full field event. That would be pretty unheard of. This is the most expensive Scotty Scheffler has ever been. We're going to find, like all the crypto bros are like, oh man, this is like if it can get through this wall, that's an indicator, right? It's knocked on this wall 3 times. And if it could get through that price, like, okay. Like we're going to learn a lot about Scotty Scheffler and the way that fantasy owners use him, because we have never seen him this expensive. And are we really going to get that combination of expense and ownership in a full field event? I don't know. It would be pretty rare, but I like him settling in like the low 40s, I think is probably more realistic.
I agree. And I also, without a 5K range, if we had a 5K range, then I'd be like, yeah, 48%, 50%. But I'm going to, like, if I had to put a number on it, maybe in some of the bigger contests that aren't as high dollar, I think 40% is probably right, 38%, something like that. But in the higher dollar, like single entries, Rick, maybe that creeps past 40, right?
Oh, I think it's certainly possible. Yeah. I mean, that's like we talked about. That's always like the polarizing. The single entries get polarized. And when you only have one chance to click a name, are you passing off on Scotty? Oh, it's scary.
Hef Sterling, any love for Brian Harman? I like Brian Harman. I think he's a pretty good DFS play. I like his history here. Rick, your thoughts?
Generally indifferent to Brian Harman.
Yeah.
I don't have a take. I think he's like a 5 out of 10. Like just if I have $8,500 left and Brian Harman is there, I'm not uncomfortable clicking his name. I just don't think I have a super strong take on Brian Harman.
This next question, it relates to Tom Hoge. When I was doing my initial research, even though I would have thought Tom Hoge would have shown up, he really didn't. Your thoughts on Tom Hoge?
Well, he's got some problems recently. He's the best case scenario for Hoge is you hit a ton of fairways, you turn into the best iron player in the world, and then you make some putts. Kind of seeing that, but kind of not right now. He's not driving it well from either an accuracy or a distance standpoint. The approach play has definitely cooled since the Masters. The putter's been very good, but that's also cooled the last 2. So there's concern here. It's not that like him and Russell Henley have this same type of like pathway to the top of leaderboards. And once they get off script, it's like, it's going to be bad. Let's do another football thing, right? Like, if you're a third down running back and you never get to third down, or you're like constantly playing from 2nd and 15, like you're just off script. It just doesn't work. Something like that. I don't know if that works out, but something like that.
I enjoyed the analogy, whether it worked or not.
I tried.
Rick, we're a mere 111 days away from NFL kickoff. So
is that all?
It's basically tomorrow, as far as I'm concerned.
They do a good job of like, the NFL draft is a massive event. Mm-hmm. The mini camps and free agents. It is a 12-month a year, just circus is what it is.
It's true. This is actually the time of year where it does feel like there's not a lot, because there's, after the draft, until we get to like, I don't know, all the players reporting, which is like kind of like, I guess, June. I think we have like 30 days till it picks back up again. But anyway, let's move on. Japan is in the chat. Japan, thanks for being in here. He says Harris English -115 over Siwoo Kim round 1 matchup. So Rick, I like Harris English. I liked him last week. I like him this week. I don't know that I want to take him in a round 1 matchup against Siwoo Kim. What say you?
I would prefer longer scenarios, like 4-round matchup of Harris English over Siwoo Kim.
Mm-hmm.
Siwoo is a generational upside guy. Downside too, but that usually does not come until the weekend or when things start to get pressure situated. Harris English is the guy that's just going to hem and haul and beat you by 2 strokes every day, and then wake up at the end, Sunday afternoon, and he's in the mix. Like, that's like the Harris English way to do it. So the shorter periods of time tend to scare me for something like this.
Yeah, that's fair. I think with Harris English, especially when the wind picks up and the wind gusts over the weekend, which we're expecting Saturday and Sunday, that's kind of where I want to isolate Harris English more than what we'll see is relatively good conditions tomorrow. And then, there'll be some gusts in the afternoon, but I think I want to wait for the weekend for Harris English. We know he can close, or at least we know we can have good weekends like he did last weekend. And the tougher the conditions, the more the course firms up, the more the wind, that's where I want to take Harris English. All right, we go to Jordan Etienne. Says Scotty wire to wire at +1600. I'm not betting that, but I get it. Let's see.
You should not bet that. Also, remember that this is the most mistaken thing is wire to wire means no ties either. That's the official wire to wire. So you have to lead outright after every single round. If he's tied with somebody after round 1 and then blows out the rest of the field, he did not go wire to wire. So do not forget that.
That is really interesting. Because you would think maybe they would apply the dead heat part to the front end of the wire to wire, and then good call. Thank you for clarifying.
They do not, Sia. They do not do anything that is in our favor. They do not.
That's funny. Let's see. Joseph Baker says, hey, Early Edge fam, missed this morning, but even better, I'm here now. Thanks for being in here. We are going to change this live chat to the afternoon. I don't know if it's going to always be at 4 o'clock, might change to 3 o'clock, but it's looking like this range is where we're going to be. So it sounds like a lot of people like this afternoon, and there's obviously more information that we have in the afternoon as well. So that's always good. Let's see. Jordan Atienza says, Nico Echevarria, what is this? Plus 10,000 listed par 3 winner is smart money. Okay. Well, let me ask you about Nico though. Do you like him this week? There certainly seems to be like upside with guys like Nico, guys like Sammy Valimaki.
Yeah, I liked him a lot more. The fall into the beginning of 2025, his stat profile was a lot better. He has struggled in the immediate short term. He's been flushing it, but like 3 starts ago, 4 starts ago, 5 starts ago, that stuff was kind of bad. So if you're comfortable going with like just this breadcrumb approach, right? Like he gave me a breadcrumb at the Byron Nelson. He gave me a breadcrumb at the PGA, and that's enough. And you're comfortable with that. That's fine. I tend to lean with that being okay. I think that's more okay than not. So yeah, let's call it like a 6.5 out of 10. All things relative. I think I'm definitely more bullish than I am bearish.
All right. Looks like we're out of questions. So when we close the show, I'd like to get Josh in here to give us who he thinks is going to win the tournament, or maybe a couple of guys that he thinks are going to win the tournament. Japan asks, so Josh, come in here. Japan asks, Sia, do you have any round 1 matchups? Not yet. I did reference, you came, I think, a little late to the show, did reference a 3-ball at like plus 250 that I was thinking about with David Lipsky over Rico Hoey and Sam Ryder. I haven't committed to that yet, but on the Early Edge morning show tomorrow at 10, I will have a matchup to give out. So just keep that in mind. Josh, go ahead.
Oh, no.
Josh, good to see you. Let's play a game.
Oh, no.
What? Don't look this up. Hands off keyboards. What? Closest without going over and over being too late. What time is it in Tokyo right now, since we have Japan in the chat? What time is it in Tokyo?
3:45 a.m.
I'm going to go 5:45 a.m.
The correct answer is 5:45 a.m. Those are both legit guesses. That is like when you spin the wheel on The Price is Right and you get 90 cents, and then the next person comes over and bangs the dollar. Dang, those were excellent guesses.
Josh did kind of guide me there. Like, you're right, The Price is Right thing, where I just went like $1 over, if you will. And I didn't want to give like the full
1 penny
12-hour one.
So they are. So what time is it right now? So in the East Coast, on the East Coast, it's 4:45. So
That's
they
right.
are 13 hours ahead.
Yeah.
Wow.
I was actually listening to a podcast this morning where they're referencing, it was a college basketball podcast, and they were referencing somebody who lives in Australia. So they were talking about what time they were trying to do, an impromptu, bring that guy on the podcast.
Mhm.
And so they were talking about what time it was in Australia. So I had like I got lucky that I had somewhere to jump off from.
Australia has like a lot of time zones, and some of them are half times. So like, instead of being full hours, they're like half hours. The other thing is, believe it or not, Australia is so far away that it's actually like a good time. Like, they're awake like the same times we are. It's just like the next day.
Yeah.
So like when you think of Europe, like Europe is sleeping a lot of the times that we're awake or whatever, right? There's a lot of overlap there. Like, they're in the night. It would actually be very inconvenient to live in Europe and try to follow American stuff, but it's actually not in Australia because it's so far ahead that you're awake at the same times.
So my sister lives in Melbourne, and she's lived there for like over 20 years. And so we have this like family group text with at least most of my family, my mom, my brother, and my sister and me. And so when we're saying like good morning to each other on any given day, she'll always respond like good night. So it's like, we're still like in that same, it's still like you're up during that time of day, but it's like literally the opposite. Very, very interesting.
Okay. Did not mean to derail that whole thing.
Rick, how long did it take you to get to Australia when you went and did your trip of a lifetime?
15 and a half hours, I think it was the flight from LAX.
Jeez, I'm good.
I've done that flight as well a long time ago, but there's an NFL game that's going to be out there, not this coming year, but I think the following year.
Yeah, they're playing at the Adelaide Oval. Is that right?
You would know, I guess, probably. I don't know, but either way, I'm gonna try to get over there. Maybe Rick and Josh, can you pull some strings and get CBS to send me over there?
No, but I'll go with you.
Well, both then.
If you think I know where any of the strings are, that's crazy.
Melbourne Cricket Ground is where they're playing.
Oh,
sure.
All right.
Sure.
That's a great stadium. Anyway, Josh, who's winning? Who's winning this week? Charles Schwab Challenge.
I think Scotty Scheffler is going to win this golf tournament. That's super boring. That's super boring.
Yeah. So okay, let's just take him out though. Assume he's not in the conversation.
I would be lying to you if I told you my research into this golf tournament has been deep, but names that I am intrigued by: Aaron Rye, Mav McNeely. I think Ben Griffin's going to win at some point this year in a tournament like this, and it could be this week. It could not be. But those are three names that I think are interesting.
Real quick, because those are three names that I obviously like as well, but I'm just not going to get around to in the betting market or in DFS. I think they're great though. Rick, of those three names, do you like Ben Griffin the most? Because it sounded like you were singing his praises more.
Yeah,
earlier.
I think I do, man. He looked super good, and he was. I try not to take much away from practice rounds and like range sessions, but he wasn't missing many shots in practice rounds. He had a great finish. It adds up to all the stuff that he has done in 2025. Again, I think he's brimming with confidence, but at the same time, there's still this thirst for, yeah, I won, but I didn't win by myself.
Yeah,
type of thing. Yeah. So it's a really good perfect storm for Ben Griffin.
I feel the same way about Harris English, who after his fourth round, his interview, it felt like he thought, maybe not in round 4, it felt like he thought there was a lot left on the table. It felt like he thought he could have won the tournament. That's just me kind of trying to play psychologist a little bit, but that's part of the reason I'm leaving my money on Harris English this week. All right, speaking of leaving, we got to get out of here. That's Josh on the 1s and 2s and 3s and 4s, and of course in front of the camera as well. Love when Josh pops onto the show. We've got Rick Gehman here, who's traveling a ton, but he's here. And thank you, Rick, for being here. And thank you, everybody, for being in the chat. Thanks for sticking with us with the time changes and stuff. Again, this show's probably going to be more in the afternoon. So hopefully that works out for everyone. And we'll see you next time on the Early Wedge.